Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Go Big with Micha. Today, I'm super excited to be talking to Richa Bansal. And I've known Richa for quite a couple of years. And I've had her on a panel with a colleague about being the only woman in the room. And so we've crossed paths quite a bit. And I'm very excited that she agreed to come here and share her knowledge with you. So if you're watching that live, please absolutely drop questions, comments in the chat. We are happy to engage with you. And today, Rita and I are talking about ditching the fear. That's something everybody can relate to. Totally get that. But before we dive in, let me tell you a little bit about Rita. She is a career strategist and leadership coach. So her big passion is working with ambitious mid career and senior professionals who really want to stop playing safe and really have their careers explode and compensation and impact at the same time. But even if you are on a more junior level, please follow Richa, reach out to her because she has tons of advice for you too. All the stuff you don't have to, all the mistakes you don't have to make to get there.
That
Right?
we made along the way, right?
Exactly. So, as I have already mentioned, she has been the only woman in the room for most of her decade long career in oil and gas and tech. And so she really knows what she's talking about when we discuss these male dominated industries and the struggles that especially women are facing. In 2019, she founded Pink Careers. That's how we originally connected. That is so with Pink Careers, she delivers actionable, no fluff career advice to ambitious professionals to accelerate their career growth. And she has partnered with over 20 Fortune 500 companies, with universities. She has been a collaboration partner with the government of Canada for years now to deliver leadership programs. And she's coached over hundreds of high potential professionals. So if you want to fast track your career, Richa is the go-to source for you. She has a bachelor from the IIT in Delhi in India, a master's from Purdue, and an MBA from Rice. So she ticks all those boxes too. And yeah, so let's dive right in. I'm very excited to have you here and talk about ditching the fear. But before we dive into that, let me hear how you define confidence because it's such a huge issue, not only in my work but of course in your work as well, right?
Yes, no, absolutely. But first of all, I have to say thank you so much, Mika, for inviting me to this LinkedIn Live. We've connected previously and done a panel together. It's always such a pleasure to talk to you. And I just have to compliment on your glasses. They go so well with this hot red lipstick that you have on. And that's like part of our confidence, right? It's something that we'll talk about later, how you show up, how you are showing up on camera, in meetings, with senior leadership, just like general public, right? Like what you wear really also gives you confidence, right? So
Yes.
something that we want to touch upon later, but I did want to compliment on you on your glasses. I
Thank
wear
you.
contacts for the last 16 years. And the reason I can't find a pair that looks good on my face is this looks really good.
If you ever come to Seattle, I know where to take you. So we will keep that on open.
For sure. The next time in Seattle, for sure, we'll connect for sure.
Yeah.
To back to your question about how I define confidence, right? For me, confidence is a very meta phase. Okay. Confidence, I don't really like to say that confidence comes very naturally to everybody. And confidence is not something that somebody should chase either, anyways.
Right.
The way I like to define confidence is really that confidence is courage, right? Like courage to be able to take that next step, even if you feel fear, right? And then we'll get into like the different types of fear routinely that I hear from the clients that I work with, and some practical strategies to overcome that. But really, for me, confidence is all about having the courage to take that next step, even if you feel unsure, even if you feel that you don't belong, even if you feel that you don't have the right skills and the experience. Continue to take that step forward, because unless you take action, things don't change, right? Nothing new
Yeah.
happens. And so the courage comes first. and the confidence sort of like comes later. It's all built upon courage.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's always what I teach and preach as well. Confidence is the result of action, of taking
Mhm.
action. That's really crucial. Even you can even fail at what you do and still build confidence around, okay, now I'm learning my lesson. This did not work. Let's try it again. That's where Edison and his 1000 ways how not to invent the light bulb come in, right? But yeah, I love that. I love that. I think courage and confidence are really so interwoven, and yeah, we just need to act.
Yeah, I mean, I can remember like countless opportunities in my own career where I prioritized courage and took action. And that action is what really built the confidence to move
Yeah.
forward, right?
Yeah.
I can really very clearly remember the first time I had started working in corporates, and maybe give an example there. And then when I started my business as well, I think that's a very relevant example,
Right.
even for those who are in their corporate careers. But moving back like 13 years ago, I started my career working in the oil and gas industry as a field engineer. Okay.
Yeah.
At the time, we didn't really have a lot of women working in the field. So I used to work offshore. I started my career working in Malaysia. Oftentimes finding myself as the only or one of the only two women on the rig side, and people telling me that, hey, you don't belong, go back. I clearly remember the first time I was working on the rig side, and I had to put in a screw, like, use a screwdriver, an automatic screwdriver to put in some screws
Mhm.
on the drill pipe, and the guys put their hand underneath, right? And because they didn't have confidence in me, because they thought that I'm going to drop the screw in the hole. Whereas there's another dude who had joined with
Yeah.
me. He had no degree. He was a field specialist. First job, same as me. They were just joking with him. They had full confidence in him that he's
Yeah.
gonna be excellent in his job, right? And so you get all of these external sort of like negative biases that come towards you, and you kind of weave through that. And I said, no, like, I have come here for a reason. I
Yeah.
know what I'm doing. I'm gonna continue doing that, right? Like, I'm gonna continue being good at my work, continue showing up. And by the end of a few stints, people were giving me compliments like, hey, you work like a man. That was their way of giving compliments
Well,
to me,
yeah, yeah. I mean,
which is so
we'll just
sad.
take that. We'll just
Which
take
is
it.
so sad. But that's their way of giving compliments in the
Yeah.
field, that,
Yeah.
hey, you're a confident woman, you know what you're doing, right? And
Yeah.
so that confidence really came out because I had the courage to keep going and not internalize all of these negative beliefs that were being thrown my way,
Right.
right? And the same
Right.
thing I can see now as I started my own career, I started my own business as a side hustle on the side of my desk job. I don't know anything about starting a business, right? um, it's just all learning by action.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I built my website from scratch. I learned how to do social media from scratch. If you Google the first version of my website, like, when I do that, I just like laugh, right?
Yep.
But it evolves. That confidence to keep going comes by taking action,
Right.
which comes from having the courage.
And you
So
can always iterate, review, whatever, all these things. But that's like reminds me of Brené Brown, the shitty first draft.
yeah,
You
the
just
shitty
read
first draft. Just get
something,
it out there.
get it out there, and then you can make it nice. And probably it's not that shitty to begin with, but who knows? Even if it is, fine. You have a
Exactly.
starting point. So yeah. So what I really, really like, I mean, about what really stood out to me right now was this: I did not internalize what I was faced with, the bias. And I'm actually reading a very interesting graphic novel right now. It's called Ducks,
Hmm.
about working in the Alberta oil industry.
Hmm.
So Alberta, yeah, I think so.
Alberta oil industry.
No,
Yeah,
not
Alberta oil
yeah,
industry. Yes.
yeah. So very interesting, by the way, but not internalizing it. So that is one thing, because it takes effort. It takes a lot of energy and strength and resilience and a lot of other things I wish we didn't need, but we do. So that's one. But I think when we're talking about fear, a lot of it stems from a time when we could not make that conscious decision yet.
Yeah.
So let's talk about, when we talk about ditching the fear in a corporate career or as an entrepreneur, what fears are you encountering most?
So some of the common fears that I have personally faced in my own career, right? That and now I see with pretty much every single high performing individual, every single client that I work with, is essentially fear of not living up to their true potential. That's
Mm-hmm.
the biggest fear, right?
Yeah,
Like,
it's huge. Yeah.
because
Mhm.
you know that you have something more to give, right? There's a reason why you've been put on the earth, right? Like
Yeah.
to leave this place better than how you found it, and really like do something big with the time that you have on this earth. I like to get a little philosophical also every once in a while. But really, I find like the fear of not living up to your truest potential is the biggest fear that people
Yeah.
face, right? And then behind that are all of these little fears that come up. Fear of making a wrong career move. Okay, what if this is the wrong choice? What if I take a role with like I have been working with a Fortune 500? What if I take a couple years and do work with a startup, and that startup fails to lift off the ground? And what is the 2 years wasted? So fear of making the wrong move. Or something that I found quite common, especially with, I want to say, some of my Asian clients, um, fear of living up to the expectations of what your parents want you to live up to, like what your
Okay.
parents want
Yeah.
you to
Yeah.
be,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I can kind of think back, the only two options that existed for me back then were being an engineer or being a doctor. Okay.
Right. Maybe a lawyer. I think a lawyer is number
Or maybe a
three.
lawyer, right?
And
So I wasn't the lawyer material, but fortunately for me, I wanted to be an engineer. Fortunately for my brother, he wanted to be a doctor. But for anybody who wants to do anything outside of that, it was very, very hard 15 years ago, and it still is,
yeah.
right? And so there's a certain definition of success that's
Yeah.
ingrained in our parents, in several parents. I mean, outside of folks who come from the Southeast Asia as well, but just this fear of not living up to expectations of our loved ones.
Yeah.
Okay. Fear of losing money. Like I know so many people who dream about starting a side hustle, but they don't because they fear they're going to lose money in the process. Or
Mm-hmm.
if they take a step back to take a little pay cut and try it in a different field or a different industry, that they
Yeah.
are going to lose money. Right.
Mm.
Sometimes we can just step back to accelerate. Other fears that I can kind of think about is fear of judgment from others.
Yeah.
Like people feeling, oh, my friend or my colleague from back in school is already making director, partner, VP. Look at me. I'm like still here. I'm still in IC role. But think about your journey is different from other people's journey, right? And I know I've been there and I've thought this way, and I can kind of talk about that. I have had a very non-linear journey, very tangential journey, right? I have worked all
And
the way from, yeah,
yeah, just to interrupt you here, because if you watch that, I have interviewed a lot of women. I've talked to a lot of women on my own channels and on partner corporation projects. I have talked to a lot of successful women. And most of them, when asked, or like in this case, Richard just said it, careers are usually not as linear as you may
yeah,
think. I
yeah.
really, really want you to embrace that there are those people, you have that very linear specialist careers, but many are not. And especially the number, I feel the share of women who have nonlinear careers is a lot higher for a variety of reasons.
And not just women, right? Like anybody who wants to be a successful leader, a
Yeah.
successful C-suite executive, needs to understand how various facets of the business work, right? How
Yeah.
various aspects of the business work. So by design, there are large companies who would put you in these non-linear roles, so you understand how every single function works, and you're to the empathetic to like the challenges that exist in marketing and sales and human resources and product design and software, like all of that, right? So it's by design. And if you have had experience across these functions, unless you want to be like the master of a certain trade, that's
Yeah.
absolutely okay as well, right?
Right.
But oftentimes, if you want to be the C-suite executive, you have to be intentional about the journey that you're taking, and it will more likely than not would not be linear, right? It would
Yeah.
need to be this tangential journey where you translate across functions, potentially even translate across geographies if you're working in a large corporation. Because unless you actually do a stint in China, how do you understand the challenges that the Asian business is facing,
Yeah.
right? Or unless you have your feet in Europe at some point of time, how do you really understand some of the opportunities that exist there, right? So it's okay. The you have to get back to the point that's important is you have to just get back to and understand whether this journey that you're taking is intentional
Yeah.
or you're cruising along
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
you're comfortable, right? And you are afraid to ask for that ask intentionally for that next step, right? But if you have had an intentional journey along the way, that's what success is, right? And if somebody else has made partner in a certain track, maybe there are other, like there's, our life is beyond our careers, right?
Right.
So I had two kids along the way. We did two MBAs in the household along the way. I did 5 promotions in 10 years along the way. And yes, I did not make partner, but that was intentional. It was by design, right? I
Yeah.
decided to keep my family in North America, and that
Yeah.
brings a certain challenges and opportunities around what I can do and cannot do, right? So as long as you fall back and think that is the career that I'm building intentional, and am
Yeah.
I happy in it?
Yeah.
That's success,
Yeah.
and
But
that allows you to lose that fear of judgment as
yeah,
well.
and I think I personally, I'm a huge believer in you can have your cake and eat it, but
Yep,
also every yes you say has a price.
yep.
I mean, or every no you say has a price. So you
And
just
there's
you
an opportunity cost for everything, right? As if you're
exactly,
saying yes to a very
exactly.
high profile, very
Yeah,
intense job,
yeah,
there's a time for it,
yeah,
right? And so you have to evaluate whether that's the right time for you. And
yeah.
maybe if you're in the middle of starting a family and you do want to intentionally spend time with your family, maybe that exact time is not the time for
It's not
you
the ideal
to
time.
take that very high intensity role.
Yeah,
That's not to say 2 years later would not be the right time for you to take that very high
right.
intensity role, right?
That's
So
why
that,
I'm actually very intrigued by the idea of making promotion cycles opt out instead of opt in, because I feel, especially women at that age, were getting a family started. That's huge, and I feel many women are afraid to say no, 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 no. I'm not in. It would be easier if opt out was a system where automatically they are asked again in 2 years. And again and again, they will be asked all along the way, so they don't have to make a huge decision that they are afraid might come back to haunt them.
yeah, but I also want to add to that, and I think that's a great point, right? That there are organizations need to be intentional about seeking out their high potential on a regular basis. But I want to challenge you that at the end of the day, it's your career,
Yeah.
right? So regardless of what the policy is at your company, you have to intentionally, you have to be cognizant
Yeah.
about, okay, if I opted out at this point for this reason, like I will get back in the game right away. And I'm also, I want to clarify that I'm not suggesting at all to opt out, right? When I had my first child, I was doing my MBA full time on
Right.
the weekends. I was working full time. I got promoted to my first managerial position, people manager position during the MBA program. We had a
Right.
first kid during the MBA program. I write my green card application during all of this. So all of it is possible, but
Yes.
the only way it is possible is with help. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I was very intentional and very greedy about help, and
Mhm.
I got my parents to come help me. I got my in-laws to come help me. I had the privilege and the option to have a cook who would come on Sundays and help us out. I had a cleaning lady.
Yeah.
I enlisted help.
Yeah.
And there are creative ways to enlist help if finances is, personal finances is something that's that you have to figure out, right? But if that's a challenge, there are so many creative ways to figure this out as well. Trade cooking with a friend. Trade taking care of your kiddo one night a week with a friend, right? And there's so many things you can do, right? You can have it all. You
Yeah.
have to decide what having it all means for
Right.
you,
Right.
and then
Being
make it happen
intentional.
intentionally.
Yeah. Yeah. And we have a comment from Caitlin. Yeah. Thank you for touching on that careers are not linear. Yeah. For women, especially. Yes. Thank you for that comment, because I feel we just need to say it over and over and over again, because there's still so much of this theme around. It's like, uh, decide decide what your bachelor is, because it will decide what your master's is. It will decide where your career goes. I quite honestly, when I mean, of course, now I'm dating myself again, but uh, most of the jobs that the people around me have these days, or whatever the tasks are involved in those jobs today, didn't even exist when I graduated from high school. Probably didn't even exist when I graduated from grad school.
Hmm.
So many of these things, or we're just starting. So I think that is so important to just also follow your curiosity and be
Hmm.
intentional. Yeah,
Yeah, I love what you say. Follow your curiosity, like what lights you up. And if you need some inspiration, we are two women here who can give you inspiration from like where we started our careers. And I studied mechanical engineering.
yeah,
From there, I moved to supply chain, to operations, to manufacturing. I've done recruiting programs, and now I've transitioned into being a career strategist and coach. Right? And so it's because I was curious about what I was seeing. I was curious about making a change. I was curious about understanding what lights me up. And I followed that passion. And
yeah,
there is always, regardless of whether you have a linear career or a non-linear, you can weave a story. Okay. It's
yeah.
part of your personal brand. So
Exactly, exactly.
when people tell me, "Oh my God, you feel like how did you move around like so much?" It's like because it was intentional, and
Yeah,
that is my story because I wanted to understand the different functions of a business, and it makes me an all-rounded individual and professional to be able to
yeah,
accelerate as a leader in a company, right? So
yeah.
you can always, and it is really up to you to weave that story that translates across your various experiences and position it in the way you want it to.
Right, right. I mean, just like, because for those of you who know me better, my all over the place career, which I am embracing these days, of course, is basically my red thread in my career is based around I am a total people person, and I can communicate between pretty much anybody in English and German.
Hmm.
So everything I do has to do with being with people and communicating. And then, of course, over the course of the years, uh, helping, supporting people became more important.
Yep.
But it would still be, that's how I started. Am I meeting interesting people? Am I communicating? And that's always been a thing. So we have another comment here. That is Naga. Thank you for this session. And she has a question. What advice you have for someone like her who is in the job market after a career break? So there's yes. Um, Richa, take it away.
Yeah. So, we take career breaks for a variety of reasons.
Mhm.
Sometimes it just so happens, right? We are kind of caught in the wrong side of the market. But sometimes we also just take career breaks intentionally because we're caring for a loved one. We moved countries. We want to just give some time to ourselves, and all of that is fine. Right. And so something that I advise to all of my clients who have back into the industry after a career break or navigating one is to look back into what did you do during the career break.
Mhm.
Okay, did you do any pro bono work, any volunteer work, any projects that were just not one of these workshops, but something long term, like 1-2 months long, any pro bono work? Those projects are part of your work experience.
Right.
Okay, work experience is not only things that you're paid for. Work experience is anything where you help create value.
Yeah.
Okay, so if it's a project, pro bono work, you're working with a volunteer organization, let's say you did a boot camp, and as part of the boot camp you are working on a real life problem with the company, that counts as a project to be put on your work experience, so that helps minimize some of that career gap. Okay, second thing, it's okay to put career break on your resume to make sure that you're not leaving the other person wondering, right?
Mhm.
Just put a career break, taking care of loved ones, or explain if there's a small one-liner explanation. But then the last thing I would say is go back to before the career break and do a deep dive into what really ignites you, what is your passion, what are your strengths, what are your skills that you bring to the table, and go back to the thing that we talked about, the story. What's your common narrative, right? What is the theme of the achievements you've had throughout your career? And strengthen your resume based on that, create your stories, and get back into the market. Shed the belief that you're being singled out of the application process simply because you have a career break. There will be companies like that, but don't let that prevent you from continue to have that courage to keep marching forward.
Thank you. Yes, absolutely. There's another thing I would like to hear your take on, because you mentioned the fear of not meeting expectations, and yes, there is. I mean, that is definitely, I see that basically in every one of my clients who has immigrant parents in the U.S. Uh, many of the clients who have Asian ethnicity or are immigrants themselves from Asia. I see it also with some of the Europeans. Like my background, I come from Germany originally, which is a first time right country. There's not there's not much room for failure. So they're very, I felt it always, for me it was always too rigid an environment. No offense, it works for a lot of people. Um, but that fear of not meeting expectations, when you encounter that with the people you work with, how do you get them started on ditching that fear or just like acting anyway?
Yeah. And again, I think I have gone through that when I started Pink Careers. When I started Pink Careers, I didn't necessarily have a whole lot of faith into where it will go, what my business would be like, where the next client would come from. All of these fears that we have as entrepreneurs, right? And I would project those fears on my parents and my husband, unfortunately. And when I talk about those fears with our loved ones, they want to protect you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So then they would say, don't do it, stop. Why don't you go back to the job? Like, why aren't you focusing on your job? Like all of these things. So understand that they're coming from a place of protecting you.
Mm.
They fear for you, right? So if you project your fears on them, they're going to reciprocate that to you. So
Right.
one of the most helpful things that I have found is I work with a coach as well. So I've started working with a coach,
Yeah.
and I limit a lot of my like conversations around my own fears and insecurities with my coach. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and then she's able to challenge that, and
Yeah.
then I can see that I was just being foolish. Okay, and so it's a slow process. It's not like a magic light bulb that will suddenly happen and then you will ditch all of those fears in one day. It's a process, right? But believe me, it gets better over time by finding a confidant in which you can you confront your deepest fears and insecurities and reasonably talk it out, right, without judgment. And when I did that, then it automatically I slowed down and almost to the point of stopping, like talking about my fears with my loved ones, and I talk about like my wins and my dreams and my vision. And so you have to work on changing the narrative and how you're projecting it on your loved ones. And if you come across as confident, they will be confident in whatever you bring to the table.
Hmm.
So my advice for anybody who's going through this journey, if you haven't already started working with a coach, think about doing so.
Yeah.
Because I can, in all transparency, I was not necessarily the person who would invest in coaches early on in my career, right? But somewhere along the way, I realized that coaching is not for people who are weak. Coaching is for people who are strong and who want to go 10 times faster
Yeah.
if those blind spots are removed. And so I invested in a coach, I invested in personal training, and like those two have done wonders for me and really, really changed my belief around the space that I'm in to the point that I'm now in the space, because I really strongly believe you need coaching when you're already at your 100% and you want to go at 1,000%.
Yes. Yes. And I am not only supporting that because I, of course, have coaching clients too, but it's just, it is like at a gym.
Yeah.
You can just go and work out at a gym, and that works. That will work. But you can also, you can go with a buddy that might give you the accountability to do a little more. You might join a group at the gym and there's a trainer, and that's already helping probably more to get your form right and to advance a little more. But the thing that really gets you to the kick-ass point is a private trainer.
Yeah, because they really push you, right? At the point where you want to stop, they really push
Yeah.
you and they challenge that belief. When I say, no, I cannot give you more than 8 push-ups, and they're like,
Yeah.
no, two more.
Yeah, and especially like, especially,
And two more.
yeah.
And you can kind of see already, right? Some of my one-on-one clients, and I have a group program that I run for job search.
Right.
My clients are within 2 months, they're already getting interviews, they're already getting calls.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that you would not get interviews and calls, because I only work with folks who have a certain level of credentials, like, and I can see they're action takers.
Right.
So they will get results. But if you're getting results 4 months later, there's an opportunity cost to that, right?
Right.
And
Right.
so that's something for you to think about. Like,
And
you want to
sometimes the
accelerate?
group is the right thing for you because you
Yeah.
want someone who has more of a perspective, like the coach, the trainer. But you also want to hear from people in the same situation. And sometimes one on one is really to 10x anything. Just
Yep,
because,
exactly.
yeah, it's also the trust. I remember when I started weightlifting, I was like 45, and I had a private trainer because, of course, I don't believe that I can even lift my body weight. What? I'm not an ant, am I? I mean, not some bug or ant or something. I cannot lift my body weight. Turns out I can. Turns out I can almost lift double my body weight. So maybe there is like ant woman somewhere hidden in me. But you know,
I
without
mean,
a
like, I'm laughing because the first time my trainer said, let's do push-ups. I have never done push-ups like on a plank. Like, I would
Mhm.
always have my knees on the ground. And so he said, let's like try 8 push-ups. I was like, I have never done push-ups. What are you talking about? And I gave him like 20 that day. And yesterday I did 50 push-ups. Okay.
Right?
And so it's this muscle, same thing as
Yeah.
you do at the gym. It's same thing for your career, same thing for your confidence. It's a muscle that you build. And if
Yeah.
you're working with somebody who can bring that accountability, like ultimately, see, the accountability has to lie with you, right? But if you can work with somebody who can help you keep yourself accountable,
Yeah.
then you're
Right.
going to go 10x faster.
And if we, I'm taking that athletic metaphor one step further, because I also like to talk about the confidence muscle that comes from taking action, but it's also muscle memory.
Hmm.
So yes, not everything goes as we expect it to do. So we can label that failure or not, but some things just don't work out. But
Yeah.
if you are in a habit of taking action, your muscle memory, so to speak, will kick in and tell you, yeah, I mean, you've done like 1,000 successful things. Yes, this thing really sucked. You did something wrong, or you were whatever. It doesn't matter. Uh, but you can do it again because it's still 1,000 to 1 here right now.
Yeah.
That's the muscle memory, right? So if you don't do push-ups for 2 weeks, you'll you'll probably not do 50 the first
Yeah.
day,
Yeah.
but you
Exactly.
will get to the 50 way faster again, and then to whatever number you have in mind. I'm very impressed, by the way. So yeah, yeah, I love that. I really love that. Before we call that a day, we could talk forever here. I really we could, I have so many questions, but um as we need to round that up right now, please tell people where they can find you. I know we have some links in the comments, and your picture is there so they can follow you on LinkedIn. But what's your favorite way to interact with people, engage with people? Where can they find you?
Yeah, I think the best way to find me is on LinkedIn. I'm very, very active on LinkedIn, other than other platforms. If you want to reach out to me, if you have specific questions, you can always reach out to me at richa@pinkcareers.com. So just my first name at pinkcareers.com. But yeah, please come and follow me on LinkedIn. I every day post content which is very, very practical, very strategic, and very like no fluff. And I'm kind of known for my straight up, no fluff, no BS advice.
Yes.
That's what I'm known for. That's my coaching style. And if you think that you're ready to take action for your career growth, you're ready to invest the time and the energy and the money in yourself, then reach out to me to talk about whether my one-on-one program is the right fit for you. And the last thing I would say is I'm running my very first job search accelerator. Okay, it's right now up for waitlist. I will probably run another cohort in a couple of months. So if you're interested in that, again, reach out, DM me on LinkedIn, and I can send you the details on where you can go and waitlist yourself. We're already seeing very, very amazing results. Three of our participants out of the 5 we have in our small cohort right now are already at last round interviews. So super excited for that. If you're in the market, that's the program for you.
That sounds fabulous. So I have nothing to add to that apart from, yeah, reach out to Richa. Thank you so much for sharing. And I'm sure our paths will cross soon enough again to continue this conversation. And I am taking a break next week, and I will be back in 2 weeks. And then there will be one more in 4 weeks, and then this season is over, and you can just catch up on all the episodes I've done over the last half year, and then we're back in fall. But I will stay on LinkedIn daily, so you can always reach out to me, of course, as well. Have a great rest of your day. Have a great weekend. And yeah, see you soon. Bye
Thank
bye.
you so much, Mika, for inviting me to come join you and speak with your audience. It's always a pleasure to speak with you. And this is such a great topic. It was so close to my heart. And,
Yes,
super excited about this talk. Thank you.
of course. Love to have you.